Yeah. So basically, I didn't have much time, and I'm also sick, but we're just gonna go into some, top fake news stories. The reason why we all hate the media. Yeah. Here we go. So, in terms of the early part of the decade, it was really hard to just go back on the internet and be like, oh, fake news from 2010. Fake news has really only reached prominence like the past 5 years, ever since Trump took office. He's really got it coined the term. So, the only one I could really think of from before 2015 was Obama saying, "Keep your doctor." It was really something that it was probably one of the biggest lies of his entire presidency in terms of he carried it on like from before he took office with the help of Hillary Clinton until basically his second term. That was really when they started bringing into question what exactly is Obamacare and are we actually going to be able to keep our healthcare provider. PolitiFact doesn't, sometimes it tends to sway left, sometimes it tends to sway right. It's usually been pretty good at covering things and how factual they are politically, and they had been covering, they've been covering basically just healthcare in general because of how much emphasis Obama placed on it. And this lie really shows that he went about healthcare in such a dishonest fashion. It was just terrible for our country. Yeah. And then Trump-Russia collusion. This is actually what really got me started in terms of my own conservative journey. I remember tuning into the Daily Wire. They had a lot of popular articles around this time, and just watching things I really had never noticed before. I never really watched, stuff like cable news, and really they just botched the whole thing. Actually, a little paper. So I was listening to Michael Knowles. It must have been a couple of years ago, and he basically just listed a bunch of things that they did to mislead the public about the whole Russia collusion thing. So on February 14th, Michael S. Schmidt, Mark Massetti, and Matt Apuzzo reported in the New York Times, Trump campaign aides had repeated contacts with Russian intelligence. The Gray Lady was subsequently humiliated when the former FBI Director James Comey testified before the Senate Intelligence Committee on the story, saying, in the main, it was not true. On June 22nd, CNN falsely reported that then Trump transition team official Anthony Scaramucci met with a Russian state bank 4 days before the inauguration. The story, based on, you guessed it, anonymous sources, was not just corrected but retracted. CNN wrote in an editor's note, the story did not meet CNN's editorial standards and has been retracted. Links to the story have been disabled. CNN apologized to Mr. Scaramucci. The debacle resulted in the firing of 3 of their journalists, which is, they tend to keep their own. So, and on December 1st, ABC News, this is in 2017, reported that during the 2016 presidential campaign, President Trump ordered Lieutenant General Michael Flynn to contact Russian officials in violation of the Logan Act. That story, based on anonymous sources, turned out to be entirely false. ABC News later clarified the report and suspended the journalist. So, it was all a hoax. And then you guys probably all followed Nick Sandmann. It's probably one of the most popular stories, especially because of the fact that it revolved around so many, colliding groups. Anything from black supremacists to, Trump supporters from a Christian school. It was just a giant intersectional war, basically, and the media tried to portray it as such. Really, what really happened was, Nick Sandmann was just minding his own business, waiting for their bus to get there, and this Native American, I can't remember his name, just walks up to him and starts banging his drum, and what do you know, he just sits there and smiles politely, and CNN basically ruined his life. Obviously, you probably also know that he settled the $275 million lawsuit. We don't know the numbers on that yet, but basically, CNN got what they deserved. So this is one of the only real instances in which CNN has really gotten theirs in terms of, just receiving not just public but financial, political blowback for their fake news. And then ABC and CBS. This one was a little bit underreported. This wasn't nearly as popularized like Sandman was, mostly because It was ABC and CBS. It wasn't, you know, CNN, which I mean is a ever-shrinking cable news channel anyway. Or not cable news, but anyway. Basically, the whole reason they covered for this Epstein case, the whole reason they told this lady to not talk about the case was because they were covering for their own guy, Matt Lauer, who was also involved in, you know, tons of mistreatment of women, and I think he's already been in, what's it called? He's already gone to court for a lot of those. And what's even more extravagant is they got the wrong guy. The actual leaker, well actually, what happened was ABC went to CBS and colluded with them. You know, it's the only real example of collusion, besides Hillary and the Ukrainians, that has happened in the past couple, 5 years. Basically what happened is they went to CBS and they told them, you know, find that person who leaked this private video of our ex-reporters saying that, you know, that we covered the story, and fire them. And they got the wrong guy. That guy, that leaker, is still there, still at large, and they haven't fired him yet. It's all super. I mean, it's just another way that the media just simply refuse to fairly cover someone like Jeffrey Epstein because they're too busy covering up for their, you know, their own political interests. And then this one is a little bit more recent. I did choose to take the killing of Salami just because they're both very, very similar events in that the Washington Post they just do not like Trump's foreign policy. They refuse to cover it fairly, and they can't bring themselves to admit that that he makes good decisions. They even go so far as to say that al-Baghdadi was an austere religious scholar and that Soleimani was a revered military leader. It's all in bad faith, and they don't. I mean, I don't even think they really mean it. They're just doing it so that they can, you know, so that they can get what they want, and that's to, you know, that's to be against President Trump no matter what he does. Yeah. So when we're talking about fake news, a lot of the examples I listed were not necessarily just on their face false. You would probably describe them as just misleading in general, and it really brings into question what exactly fake news is. I mean, we can't just, you've got to be able to define it. You've got to be able to, you know, take it in context of our current society. You can't just be like, fake news all the time. So when we're talking about fake news, it's not something that's like, you know, outwardly just a lie. It's not like satire like what the Babylon Bee does or what the Onion does. It's meant to be misleading. It's meant to produce a particular political outcome, and it's meant to reflect a certain amount of objectivity, and confuse the general public as to what is actually happening in reality. And it needs to change. And then you can click on that, and there's a little bonus. This is about the video. This is about the gun rally. Oh, yeah, you should vote for this.
The very violent gun rally.
Right now, thousands of gun rights activists, white nationalists, militia groups, all swarming the Virginia state capitol.
There are a lot of people nervous about what's going to happen.
Authorities in Richmond are on high alert.
It could be a tense day.
Such polarization. What may happen in Virginia?
Several hate groups, supposedly some white nationalists.
White nationalists.
White nationalists. White nationalists.
White nationalist groups. White supremacists.
White supremacists.
White supremacists. White extremists.
This entire rally stands in opposition to the meaning of this day.
Virginia on the edge.
How concerned are you that there might be some people in this crowd that may want to get violent?
There's certainly a lot of concern here.
Raising fears of a dangerous confrontation.
It could be violence, and there is real concern there about what the intention is behind this.
There's a lot of concern about the potential for violence.
Could spark violence, tensions high in Virginia, may cause violence there.
Northam clearly trying to avoid another Charlottesville.
In Charlottesville. Could see a repeat of what we saw in 2017 in Charlottesville.
Similar to what we saw in Charlottesville.
Worrying about a repeat of Charlottesville.
Horrible 2017 Charlottesville disaster.
You look at what happened in Charlottesville.
The two sides clashed in Charlottesville.
Men walked through the Capitol in Virginia carrying weapons of war.
Many demonstrators are,
You get the picture?